Mr. Rivera on the resolution.
Speaker, I also rise to identify with most of what has been said up to now. We stand on shoulders of others. I know I do. Growing up in the city, in the Bronx, to be exact, was not easy in those days. We fear for our life because speaking Spanish was dangerous to one. Going to Orchard Beach, in the beautiful Orchard Beach in the borough of the Bronx, growing up as a teenager, I was constantly reminded to go to section number 1 by the rocks, like a mile and a half from section 9, because it was not safe for us outside of section 1. Look it up. It's true stories of the 50s. So when I say that we stand on the shoulders of others, Martin Luther King is known for having said many things during his time of struggle. One of the things that he said was, even after some of his victory, he once said, wait a minute, we're not free until we're all free. Free of hate, free of bigotry. It still continues. In the borough of the Bronx, there are violence being committed almost every other week. A young kid, whether a young lady or a young man, is beaten up because he or she looks different, because he or she comes from somewhere in Asia, in the Middle East. That's what's happening in the Bronx today. We're not free until everyone is free. Mr. Speaker, I watched you and our governor march this past November with over 150,000 people that have participated in all over San Juan, Puerto Rico. We're asking for justice as American citizens. We're asking, since after all, we've been told since 1917 that we are American citizens. Puerto Rican, we're American citizens. Strange, 1917, they needed soldiers to go and fight everybody, the war that was declared those days. And we fought people that never hurt me or my people. Muhammad Ali said that during the Vietnam War. I ain't gonna go fight over there, those people never hurt me. It was others that don't look like me that always beat me up and chased me out of the neighborhood. Mr. Speaker, that march today, Puerto Rico, American citizens, over 3 million, is suffering. We talk about the budget, it's suffering because no matter that we have died by the thousands defending our democracy, today, under this administration, my brother Barack Obama, he's not saying anything. If anything, what comes out of the federal government is that you, Puerto Rico and Puerto Rican, owed corporate American over $73 billion. We're bankrupt, and we're not allowed to declare bankruptcy. What kind of American citizenship is that? Any borough, any state in this nation is allowed to declare bankruptcy. But a people whose soldiers served in all the wars, especially Iraq and Afghanistan, more Puerto Rican, not knowing the language of English, died for our democracy in Iraq. 3 million people population. We have over 18 million in the state of New York. More Puerto Rican gave their life than soldiers from the whole state of New York. Look it up. It's all well documented. And today, to make matters worse, the federal government say, hey, not only do you owe Wall Street Corporate America $73 billion, but we ain't going to reimburse you for your Medicaid and Medicare. We're not going to pay your health care system. What is that in our time? We have a lot of Martin Luther King wannabe. And the more we get, the better. But we need a Martin Luther King to stand up and say it's not right. Washington is not right. These people gave up their life. They're proud American citizens, and we treat them not like American citizens, not second or third class citizens, or maybe worse. So we do need a Martin Luther King today. Mr. Speaker, and I thank you and the governor for having marched, because in your way, you were in a way imitating Martin Luther King by leading the march. He led marches across bridges. You led a march, and if nobody here believes me, I'll have you on videotape, my brother. All right? So Martin Luther King inspired me so much. A young man growing up in the borough of the Bronx who had been homeless for 6 months. Yeah, I know what being homeless is. Who by 1977, Jimmy Carter came to the Bronx and said, I will rebuild your houses. We look like Berlin, 1945. Enough was enough. I was inspired, Brother Barron, by the People's March, by Martin Luther King, that he was creating a city in struggle in Washington, D.C. It didn't happen because he was taken away from us fighting for the rights of common workers, Department of Sanitation workers. I was inspired, my friend. In 1983, I went back to Washington, D.C. with Councilman Wendell Foster. He and I coordinated the effort for the borough of the Bronx. I have it a video. And my little boy at that time, 4 years old, Joel Rivera, later on, we stand on shoulders another. He became a member of the city council. He became majority leader of the city council. So here we were, 1980, we organized in remembering the struggle of Martin Luther King, that he never got to realize it because he was taken away by those ugly forces in society who preaches and agitate and incite hate against others. He was taken away from us. I was inspired. In 1980, I and a group of unemployed construction workers, we put together the People's Convention in Charlotte Street, where we started a handful of us, African-American and Puerto Ricans at that time, okay? Yes, some Dominicans, they were already in town, joining us in suffering, joining us in struggling. We put the People's Convention. Before you know it, it exploded. We embarrassed this nation. We began to expose what we were subjected to, the kind of housing. We were being burned out of our homes. Arson for profit. You remember those days, brother? Arson for profit. The Bronx is a different borough today. It has been rebuilt. It looks beautiful, but we still have problems. Hopefully, because we stand on shoulders of those who struggle about Martin Luther King, I was able to eventually run and for office, even though most of the people never understood my fluent broken English or my fluent broken Spanish. And so here I am as a member of this great body, sharing my experience in history. And when we say enough is enough, we got to continue to hit the city. Okay, we cannot continue to be entertained and educating our children where there is funding properly, charter school or a public school. Let's stop playing games and disrupting the education of our children. My speaker, it was barely just almost to the day a year ago that I stood here and I say, I'm with you. You can do the job. You can be the speaker. You don't believe me? I have that part of video too. And I'm ready to put it up a year after. So remain strong, Mr. Speaker. I know you're from the Bronx, and I know you have a tough job because you cannot just single out the Bronx. You got to work with all 62 counties. But we're proud of you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to sit down before my speaker said, enough is enough. You went off past your 15 minutes.
No, you're doing fine on that part there.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Linares on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I add my voice with regards to this resolution that once again we introduce as an assembly. And I rise as an immigrant, New Yorkers, as an American that arrived precisely during the time that Martin Luther King was leading the civil rights movement of this country. And I believe that I would not be exaggerating if I were to say that as wave of immigrants came to this country of ours throughout its history, but more recently in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and we all know that they still kept coming. I came from the Caribbean, but people came from Africa, from Southeast Asia, from the Middle East, from Europe, Eastern Europe, from throughout this hemisphere in Latin America, looking to escape injustice, not just political oppression, but also social and economic injustice in their homelands. And they found opportunities here. So many waves, recent wave of immigrants benefited so much from the work of Martin Luther King and other luminaries like him who paved the way for many of us to have opportunities, which, by the way things are now shifting in this country, many of those opportunities that were created thanks to the work of Martin Luther King and many others are now under threat. Access to education, to health care, to dignity in your employment, so on and so forth. Yesterday I was looking at one of the newspapers in the city of New York, and it highlighted the wealth of the human race. And it highlighted 62 individuals that own $1.76 trillion, while half of the human race, the bottom half of the human race, has combined that amount of $1.676 trillion. This chart alone speaks to the injustice in the way things are set up, not just in this country, but throughout, where 62 people have what half of the entire human race does not have. And I highlight this because if we, in our deliberations as a body, we represent more than 18 million New Yorkers, but we also represent what the rest of the world is looking at. So as we celebrate Martin Luther King, the legacy that he left for us, I think every day of the year, we need to think of how much work we have to do as a legislative body, but also how many people in places where decisions are not even made about social justice, economic justice, and political oppression, how much they depend on the way we carry on. So I just want to highlight that from the perspective of what is going on today in the world, the shifting of population because of oppression or because of persecution that exists, particularly in the Middle East. And so I hope that the deliberations that we carry on as we approve the next budget next year as a body, the executive, the higher house, this house, we reflect on what lessons Martin Luther King left for us to guide what we do in the decision that we make collectively as those who represent the rest, all New Yorkers. So having said that, thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to speak on this historic day and the action of one of the great luminaries of the human race, Martin Luther King, Jr.
Ms. Bishop on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to speak on this resolution commemorating Dr. Martin Luther King's Jr. legacy. Want to say that today we face challenges like those that fueled Dr. King's dream for the future of America. As we strive for criminal justice and education reforms in New York State, as well as solutions to the widening opportunity gap between the wealthy and everyone else, it is important that we embrace his values and remember his legacy. Dr. King believed in providing all people with equal opportunities to succeed here in New York. We know that begins with quality education. We should be working hard to invest in our schools and give educators the support they need to help our children to learn and to grow. Dr. King fought to diminish and address poverty in this country. Just last week, my brother-in-law, Dr. Ricardo Dunner, who, Mr. Speaker, you know very well, who went to school with you at Stony Brook, was called to a trip in Honduras to volunteer as the lead medical doctor with Columbia students. He was called, along with the Columbia medical students, to do King's work, which is to help poor Honduras families. Unfortunately, there was an accident, and 3 students died. My brother-in-law was in that accident. It was tough because he was called to do King's work, to do God's job. When I got the message at the governor, state of the state, I rushed to Honduras to be at his side. He survived. He survived, and he was airlifted to New York Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. These 3 students died, and others were injured doing King's work, and let us remember them in our hearts as we commemorate Dr. King. As my pastor would say, we need to think about being king-minded. With an eye toward the future, I pray that together we fight for the New Yorkers, for economic justice, for civil rights, social reform. Because if we don't speak out, no one will. And we want to make sure that Dr. King's sacrifices and his dream becomes a reality. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me that opportunity to speak in celebrating and commemorating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. legacy. Thank you.
Mr. Perry on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 53 years ago, Dr. King stood at the Lincoln Memorial and mesmerized a crowd of freedom marchers with his immortal "I Have a Dream" speech. When we think of Dr. King, we spontaneously think about that speech. But, Mr. Speaker, if Martin Luther King was alive today, I have no doubts whatsoever that Dr. King would agree that after 53 years, the time for dreaming is past. The time for dreaming is over and is behind us. Today, Mr. Speaker, let us pass this resolution, but not simply just pass this resolution, but, Mr. Speaker, let us declare, each and every one of us, that we will commit ourselves fully to every effort to realize this dream. The time to dream is over. Now is the time to achieve the dream. Achieve the dream by enacting laws that will provide equal justice in our criminal justice system and in our courts to every New Yorker, regardless of the color of his skin, his creed, or his beliefs. Achieve the dream by voting for a special prosecutor to ensure that black lives and all lives will matter. Achieve the dream by enacting the DREAM Act so that immigrant children who came to America, immigrant families who came to America with a dream can also achieve that dream as being a part of our world of opportunity. There are many things we could do, Mr. Speaker, to make Dr. King happy as he sleeps. Many things we could do. I urge that we do all we can to make sure that America is not in a state of dreaming, but that we act to achieve this dream. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Pichardo on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to speak on this very important resolution. You cannot think about what Dr. King did in the context of almost 5 decades ago, and you put it into today's context. And if Dr. King was around today, he would say, we've come very far, but there's so much work to be done. Because of Dr. King's struggle and so many within the civil rights movement, an African-American kid from Hawaii can aspire to become president. A young Dominican kid born of immigrants from the Bronx can sit at the table and advocate for 125,000 of his constituents and for his neighbors. But today, as Dr. King would look today and say there's so much work to be done, he wouldn't be wrong. Fortunately, back in the 1980s, when we were discussing whether or not to honor Dr. King, there was discussions within the Congress to honor him, and there was these detractors that would say, no, we shouldn't honor a man who was a commie. Today, not too far from this Capitol, in the state of Michigan, Flint in particular, there are young men, women of color, both black and brown, who are being systematically poisoned by their governments, and no one has taken up responsibility. So yes, we've come a long way, but we need to do more to make sure that everybody, regardless of where they come from, what color is their skin, what religion they practice, that everybody is viewed and protected equally under the law. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? The resolution in honor of Dr. King is adopted. We will rise and give a moment of silence in his honor. Thank you. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, sir, Mr. Speaker. I understand there are other resolutions and some additional housekeeping. If we could take them up at this time.
We have additional fine resolutions. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The resolutions are adopted. At the request of the sponsor, the following bills are committed back as follows. Walker, Calendar 259, number 6945, Committee on Codes. Walker, Calendar 260, 6948A, Committee on Cities. Walker, Calendar number 299, 7585, Children and Families. Mr. Morelli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd ask you to call on Mr. Crouch so that he may make an announcement.
Mr. Crouch.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. There will be an immediate Republican conference in the parlor following session.
Immediate Republican conference in the parlor. Mr. Morelli. Ms. Schimmel. Democratic Assembly Democratic Conference in the Speaker's Conference Room, immediately following session. Mr. Morelli.
Yes, sir. I now move that the Assembly stand adjourned until 11 a.m. Thursday, January 21st, tomorrow being a session day.
The Assembly stands adjourned.